appointment as of the Airlines Association of Southern Africa. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Raphael. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the words of encouragement. Your congratulations on my appointment actually means a lot to me. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really been a position that I know you deserve, and even more, considering your length of experience in this industry and your contributions that cuts across not only Africa, but across the globe in terms of supporting aviation, and especially your advocacy role. It is my hope that with this new position, you are going to bring in a lot of new energy to continue from where our good friend Chris left off, and drive the industry from the Southern African perspective.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Raphael. Thank you very much. It's encouraging to have people like you with me, and I'm sure that we'll be able to do it all together.
Good. So we delve straight into our discussions for today, and to our listeners, before we get started, allow me to make a few housekeeping announcements. This session is going to run for 1 hour between now and midday East African time. So we encourage all of you to actively participate in these discussions. And sorry, between now and midday West UTC GMT time, not East African time. So East African time is 1400 to 1500 hours. But allow me to let you know that you can participate in this discussion as in the previous ones. So whenever you want to ask a question, please put it in the Q&A tab. You can also make comments in the chat box, and as we go along, we would have the opportunity to review them with you and then share our perspectives on whatever you put in there. Please know that this is a free discussion. It's a discussion that we exchange information, exchange best practices, get thought-provoking leaders to share with us their perspectives about this industry and how we can make it better for all going forward. And so the perspectives expressed in this forum are intended to actually shape African aviation going forward into the future. So ensure you are part of this discussion and actively participate by using the chat function or the Q&A tab as provided. Towards the end of it, we will review those comments, and then Aaron will give some responses as there might be a need. So thank you very much, and I warmly welcome all of you to this session once again. So now to Aaron, the first area I would want us to look at is the evolution of air transport within the Southern Africa region since COVID struck nearly 2 years ago. How has it been like in that part of the world? I know you just took over, but I'm sure you've been monitoring the situation even before.
Well, thanks for that first job, Raphael. So the reality is that, you know, I think COVID is, in my view, a scapegoat. Anywhere in the world, aviation has been what it is, and COVID just came and found it where it was. So in Southern Africa, we are privileged to have a region comprising of 16 countries, almost 360 million people in this region. So there's vast opportunities here. So when COVID arrived, it found us grappling with the business of doing aviation business. We had airlines that were struggling, we had airlines that were thriving, and we had airlines that were caught in between thriving and struggling. So COVID arrived, and all it did, and personally, Raphael, I take it as a positive, all it did was to put a stop in our tracks and make us realize where we are. So the past 2 years have been fantastic in terms of almost like COVID is a leveler. It has been able to level the playing field. Everybody has been able to actually realize where they are, where they've come from, and possibly where they could go to. And right now, as you and I are speaking, in the Southern African region, we are battling with a situation where there is another variant that has been identified, and again, there could be fallbacks in terms of we were beginning to see green shoots, and people are complaining that this particular variant has set us back. Of course, it has set us back, but again, it found us where we are. And my thoughts about COVID up to today, Raphael, is this: it found us where we are, and we are the ones who have to define what it is that we are going to take out of this COVID situation.
So, would you then say that some of the airlines in Africa are already figuring out where to go from here, or we are still wallowing in uncertainty?
Very good question, Raphael. Very good question. So I've also been looking at it from that point of view and thinking to myself, at one stage, I think we had 49, if not 51, between 49 and 51 IATA accredited airlines on the continent. And just the other day, I was thinking to myself, I wonder how many of these airlines are still in existence. Or maybe they are even new entrants. So it's a very good question that you ask. And I think, end of the day, the answer to myself has been this, Raphael, two things. There are airlines that are still wondering what happened. They have got absolutely no clue what happened to them in terms of whether it was COVID, whether it was business, whether it was the environment, or something happened and they are just wondering what happened. And then there are some airlines that are saying, we know what happened and we know exactly how we're going to respond to what happened. So to me, those are the two. There's very little in between in terms of people still trying to figure out. No, they either know what happened or they don't know what happened.
And we, in the process, we've also seen some casualties. Would you say that those that were that either went into liquidation or collapsed one way or the other, they were actually on their way there, and COVID just fast-tracked the process, or it was just as a result of COVID that they could not survive?
Again, Raphael, like I said earlier on in the beginning of our chat, I don't want to support the notion that COVID caused us to go through what we are going through. I think those that have gone the other way, that have either collapsed or are battling to come back, they were in that situation even before COVID. Truth be told, they must have found themselves battling with the reality of doing aviation business long before COVID. And COVID came and it became almost like a last punch to either a drunken boxer or to a drunkard who's gotten in the wrong house. But it was just a last punch that took them out. But before that, a lot of things were happening. And those that are still standing, Raphael, we need to talk about them as well. Because we can't only talk about those that went the other side. We must also talk about those that are still standing.
In fact, I'm getting there. I want us to deal with those that have gone and whether there are hopes of they coming back, or that is the final we've seen of them before we come to those that are still existing.
Well, you know how nature works, Raphael. Nature abhors a vacuum. You create a vacuum, nature fills it. So if an airline collapses, even if they're just serving one particular sector, one particular route, believe me, the moment they go down, somebody else fills it in. There is no such thing as you go down and you expect that you come back and your space is still being maintained. No, it doesn't work like that, especially in the aviation industry. The moment you go down, even if you were carrying a minimal number of passengers and cargo, the moment you go down, somebody else comes and fills that gap in maybe the same way that you were doing it, but probably and most likely in a very different way. So I honestly hope that the ones that went under are going to actually have a very good look at themselves. And if they decide to come back, They must come back in a completely different way or mind frame. I wish them the very best, Raphael. I don't wish anybody any bad. I just wish them the very best in terms of their inward reflection to understand what made them go that other way.
So if anyone wants to maintain their space in terms of airlines, if they want to maintain their space, their best bet is to do all possible not to disappear in the first place. And
exactly, Raphael. It's almost typical of maybe if you put it in a sporting way. Have you ever seen a football team playing and saying that no, we don't worry about the first 90 minutes. In extra time, we will either score a draw and score a winning goal. It doesn't work like that. From the moment the referee blows the whistle, you start playing to win. So whoever is in this industry must always make sure that they understand the name of the game. You play to win. You don't play to draw. You play to win.
But you mentioned at some point that this COVID has also come with some opportunities. So let's look at what are those opportunities and how can the airlines that are existing today take advantage of some of those ones going forward?
Good. Excellent question, Raphael. So let's look at it this way. Like I said, if we take it to a sporting arena, in football, which almost everybody knows, you play the first 45 minutes, and then you are given 15 minutes to go and recover, and then you come back and you play another 45 minutes. But in this business, especially in aviation, there's no halftime. COVID has come as a God-given halftime.
Yeah.
Everybody has been now given the opportunity to say whether you are shutting down for 6 weeks or for 6 months. This is the God-given halftime that you have. You must actually now start saying we have to reset. How are we going to reset ourselves? Make sure that you understand the things that you're not doing well. Make sure you understand the things that you're doing well. And importantly, make sure that you understand the things that you're going to do going forward. For me, this is the beauty of COVID. It has given us that opportunity. Everybody, I'm telling you, in my view, COVID has been a leveler. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Everybody was grounded at one stage or the other. Some were grounded for 2 weeks, some were grounded for 2 years. But even if you're grounded for 2 weeks, you had that opportunity to have an inward introspection, look at yourself and say, what can we do differently going forward?
Wow, that's a tough call for many of the airlines. But the one thing I have seen and observed in the last 2 years or so is that when COVID struck, I sort of saw many airlines shrunk their operations. And as the markets begin to recover, they are putting in capacity, but gradually. The past where I see African airlines competing on who has the most frequencies, who has the most seats on a particular city pair, I think airlines are rethinking that mode. Probably because they don't have the money to throw away, but also probably because they are beginning to adjust to the realities of the times, knowing that this is actually the best way to run an airline and not otherwise, as we were doing before. So it's very important and interesting that we are seeing this. We just hope that when things normalize, we will not have African airlines get back into their old mode of chasing each other on the routes and not working together.
But Raphael, you're absolutely correct. We have seen some airlines shrinking themselves because they are forced to shrink, right? But the reality, especially in aviation, is that no airline can ever shrink itself into profitability when the environment itself is full of other players. So for me, again, I use the word reset, and for me, it's a deliberate word. I try and move away from restart, because when you talk about restart, you are talking about shrinking yourselves into profitability. It will never happen. The moment you shrink yourselves, you have to shrink other things as well. You cannot only shrink your operation and shrink your network and still have the same kind of expenditure and still the same kind of strategy that got you into this environment where you have to shrink. If you are shrinking, you have to reset everything. So Shrinking to me is actually resetting everything. You reset your strategy, you reset your objectives, you reset your key performance indicators, you reset everything. Then you are able to go and start fighting in a different category. From a heavyweight, you come to bantamweight or even to lightweight. But you can't shrink and then go back and start fighting a heavyweight fight when you're now a bantamweight. You're going to die.
Great. I like the analogy, the sports analogy that you throw into this discussion. Very classic. Yeah. Thank you. Now, I just want, I could not move away from this subject without asking you, as the new CEO of the Airlines Association of Southern Africa, against this background, what your vision is for air transport development for Southern Africa first and the continent as a whole. What's your vision?
So I think, just to indulge you, I'll probably call it a vision. But being the person that I am, I want to call it a dream, Raphael. I have a dream.
Good.
And my dream is this. I dream of a Southern African aviation industry that is coordinated, cooperative, collaborative, and committed. It has to be coordinated in such a way that we look at it from a developmental point of view. How do we coordinate our developmental activities as Southern Africa? Aviation cannot be a standalone. We have 6 countries in Southern Africa that are landlocked. They have to be an integral part of the entire process of developing an integrated aviation industry. So again, going back to my previous session, that COVID is actually a God-given. It's a godsend. We now all have the opportunity as the Southern African Development Community to come together and say, what do we want to do as a high-level thinking process to integrate ourselves in an aviation sector, as an aviation sector. I have a dream, Raphael, that Southern Africa can actually become a very competitive and efficient, effective network destination. It can be a network destination because our customers and goods will arrive in one area, traverse the region, and exit through another area without any barriers. And we need to incorporate what we have been given by the African Union in terms of the Single Africa Air Transport Market, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. We need to incorporate that into our process of integrating ourselves as an aviation market. That's part of my dream. That dream extends to the extent where we are going to say, unfortunately, not every country is going to get out of this situation with a national carrier. It's just the way nature works, okay? I would love to see as many airlines as possible, but it's just the way nature works. We are not going to see every country come out of this pandemic with their national carrier intact. In that case, what we need to do in my dream is to make sure that we leverage what we have. We have a lot of aviation industry expertise in this part of the continent. A lot, Raphael. We have airlines in this region, some that are even above 80, octogenarians. And we have airlines that are startups, some that are even 3 months or not even 3 years old, infants. In between, there is so much experience and expertise and exposure that we need to get together. In my dream, we have this coming together and making sure that we develop ourselves to become an integrated, holistic aviation market and industry that supports the growth of our region from an economic and social political point of view. That's my dream.
Wow, that's a powerful one. That is a powerful one. But I would look forward to seeing how this unfolds, especially with COVID. All states and all regional economic communities have come to realize the importance of air transport to their socioeconomic development during the COVID period. And I want to believe that going forward, the regional economic communities will become a significant building block for aviation renaissance in Africa. If they don't come together as countries in the sub-regions to help this industry move forward, chances are the challenges would remain and we would have missed the boat going forward. I just hope that together, through the regional economic communities, all the way up to the African Union Commission, we are going to see commitment and focus in an effort to help the industry move beyond where we are today. Now, let me now move on to my next subject. We've talked a lot about what the impact of COVID has been and how opportunities are there. Now, my issue is competitiveness of the industry in Africa. If we look at when COVID struck, globally, some $250 billion have been given by various governments and other organizations, either as cash, as grants, or as some sort of concession one way or the other to enable the airlines to move forward. Africa's share of this was just 2.7 billion at the last time I checked. Probably this has improved, but the last time I checked, it was just 2.7 billion. Now we are in a global economy, so where the recovery, the support to recovery is uneven, don't you think this is likely to impact African airlines once competition get back on stage firmly?
Well, Rafael, so here is another thought from me. When you have a sickling in a hospital bed, and you don't address the actual cause of their being sick, you continuously feed the symptom that they are feeling. Somebody is feeling hot and they are sweating, and you give them an air conditioner in a hospital bed without diagnosing that that person is actually suffering from malaria. What's going to happen? You're going to continue to build a lot of buffer facilities. You're going to give them an air conditioner. You're going to give them a bath. You're going to give them all these kinds of things. It will not help, because the real issue is you have not diagnosed their problem. Their problem is that they are infected with the malaria vector. You must treat malaria to be able to get rid of malaria. Bring it back to aviation. 250 billion is what we know. That's what we know has been given.
Yes, yes.
If we dig deeper, Rafael, I can assure you, we'll come up with a different number, because there's much more that has been given to these airlines. And yes, when we get back out of this pandemic, are we going to see the same kind of approach taking place? Most likely, because unless and until we have learned the lesson, we are not going to change. And I agree with you. When competition comes, believe me, the competitors themselves, they have had the same opportunity like we have had to relook at how they are doing things. And I can assure you, Rafael, those competitors, they are resetting. They are resetting their strategies in terms of how they're going to attack us in a different way. When they used to come and do jab, and a left hook, they are now going to come and do jab, left hook, jab. So they actually have a different approach in terms of how they're going to attack us. My view, again, Rafael, is to say, let's start afresh. This is the perfect opportunity for us to start afresh.
Yeah, but we're starting afresh, but on a rather high cost basis that we are carrying from the past. For instance, if you look at African aviation, it's been one of the most expensive. If you look at other regions' cost of the industry compared to Africa. Now, if we are going to restart, how do we restart with this high cost overhang on our neck? What do we need to do?
So don't restart, Rafael. Don't restart. That's what I keep saying.
We should reset.
Reset.
Okay. Reset. So let's reset.
So you reset. We have to go and look at money and we are going to continue to be indebted. We must reset and say how to start with, Raphael. Don't even reset your business plan. Reset your business model. What model do you have? I'll give you an example, Raphael. So we in South Africa, we are lucky that we are going to be able to have low-cost carriers. We are lucky because we have different environments where, for example, you can operate from Lanseria to another place. So we have got secondary gateways. But in most markets, Raphael, there are no secondary gateways. So if you are going to try and operate a low-cost operation from the same legacy airport, your costs to start with are not low-cost costs. So you are already coming back into the same ring with the same gloves that are battered and torn, and you want to fight a new competitor who's got a new equipment. You need to start saying, if we are going to be a low cost, what are the criteria for you to become a low cost? That's the reset I'm talking about. If you are going to start operating from a different point of view in terms of how you are going to operate and serve the same markets, how are you going to serve them differently from your business model point of view? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get your point, but how does now the countries that just have single entry points but have potential to change their model, how do they do that if they cannot actually have multiple airports from which they can ensure they have low-cost operations, for instance? How would they do that?
Right. So here's the thing, Raphael. I totally understand the geographical layout of Southern Africa and of the African continent. I understand that some markets, they just are not big enough to have more than one airport. I totally understand that. So the approach then is to say, do you want to continue to do the same things that you're doing prior to COVID-19 that got you into this hole where you can't get yourselves out? You are going to keep digging, and you're going to continue going deeper and deeper. Stop digging. Ask yourselves, what can we do differently? This is the new business model. So instead of saying that we want to have an airline that operates from our airport, say we want to have multiple airlines operating from our one airport, but multiple airlines operating different schedules. So you don't have one bank of arrivals and departures. You have multiple banks of departures and arrivals. You now incorporate intermodal thinking and say, how can we bring, for example, to the landlocked market, how can we bring land transport, railways, and road networks to feed and defeed from your airport? Suddenly, you are now beginning to extend the catchment area for those airlines that were no longer, that did not think that could come to your airport. Suddenly, there's a new market. The new model is now suddenly begin to become attractive. You are now beginning to actually see different things. Instead of just saying we want to have our own airline operating into our own airport, open up and say, let other airlines come. Implement SATAM and say, you're going to give 5th, 6th, and 7th freedom traffic rights. Let them come and see what happens. Some airlines have done this, Raphael.
So talking about SATAM, you touch another area, another angle. But let me still hold on to SATAM. Let me avoid the temptation of going to SATAM. Now, let me go to service delivery. You know, the Southern African market aviation seems to be doing better in service delivery to customers or passengers compared to other parts of Africa. Is there anything that the rest of African airlines can learn from the Southern African counterparts, particularly in South Africa?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely, Raphael. So the first thing that all the other airlines on the continent can learn from us in Southern Africa is that competition is healthy. Competition is healthy. You cannot thrive in your business by trying to kill competition. You actually do better by having more fierce competition and emulating what your competition is doing and trying to do better than your competition, number one. And number two, you need to be able to say your customers are the ones that determine what service you're going to provide. Because the customers have an opportunity to go to your competitors, and you now start learning that customers vote with their feet. When you are arrogant and you are adopting the take it or leave it approach, customers have the opportunity to walk over to the next service provider, different to yourself. And the third and most important thing, Raphael, is that other airlines can learn from us in Southern Africa that success cannot be guaranteed. You might be successful today. Believe me, if we don't continuously improve, your competitors will overtake you. We are so rich with the history of airlines that have come from nowhere, unknown airlines, and they've become number one in service delivery. Be it on time, be it on board, be it just customer interaction. From an online point of view, do not be afraid of competition. Emulate what your competition is doing and learn to live with competition. That's what we can say to our fellow sister companies in Africa.
I tell you, Aaron, you have just reminded me about the history of Nokia and Motorola.
Yes.
Now that today's success it does not assure you of tomorrow's success. But I think many of our airlines in Africa have lived in past glory for too long. And long even after that glory is gone, we still always cast our minds back to the past and says, no, we were number one. And we are going to get back there. But the process of getting back there is different from actually where you were when you were there. Because
Raphael, one of my favorite books is a book called The 22 Laws of Inimitable Marketing by Jack Trout and Al Rais. And one of the laws says that success builds contempt, and contempt brings failure. The more successful you are, the more you are likely to be contemptuous, and the more likely
fall because they're contemptuous.
Yes.
And that's when we just need to continuously work at improving ourselves rather than doing it. But talking about improving ourselves, why is it that even in the Southern African market, where the airline seems to be doing much better than others, we're seeing less and less cooperation among the airlines in the region, just like elsewhere in Africa? What's the problem?
Okay. So again, Raphael, one of the books I read, and I actually took this saying from that book: we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we'll die and perish, or we'll perish and die like fools. Martin Luther King said that.
Wow.
So I think the concept of cooperation, for some reason, has been dead for a long time, simply because airlines have had this national carrier syndrome. So if we are the national carrier of country A, we carry the national emblem of country A. There's no way we can be seen to be cooperating with country B, who we see as being smaller or less important than us. And country B says, we are the national carrier of country B. We carry the national emblem, and we cannot be seen to be doing anything less than country A. And there comes the competition. Again, Raphael, it goes to the same thing. When the business model is inward looking, you are bound to fail because you don't see the opportunity of the low-hanging fruit that comes from cooperation. It's low-hanging fruit. All it means is be able to say, even if you're a national carrier, what does it take for us to go and cooperate with another national carrier? Simple and straightforward. Number one, you have cost efficiencies. For me, that's the bottom line. And I've always preached, and you have heard me say this before, Raphael. When you talk about a national carrier and you are saying we are hitting our targets in terms of generating revenue, revenue is vanity. It's like polishing your fingernails with a bright polish. They look good for now, but they don't change. They still remain the same. How much lipstick can you put on a pig? A pig will always be a pig, no matter how much lipstick you put on it. So revenue is just vanity. Profit gives you a sense of sanity. It gives you an indication of maybe you are meeting some of your costs, but that's all it does. It doesn't change anything. Cash flow is king, Raphael. Cash flow is king. No matter where you are, no matter what you are, whether you are a national carrier, a private carrier, if you don't have positive cash flow, the airlines that we were talking about earlier on that went bankrupt, they didn't go bankrupt because they don't have aircraft. They still have the aircraft, but they went bankrupt because they don't have cash, Rafael. So end of the day, why our airlines are not cooperating is because of this mistaken notion that we are competing against another airline. You are not competing against another airline. You are competing against yourselves. What we are seeing happening in Southern Africa mostly is airlines now coming together and saying, even if I'm from a different jurisdiction to yourself, what can we do to work together? So we have underground quite a number of activities that airlines that are coming together and beginning to cooperate and collaborate. And we are encouraging that as the African Airlines Association. We are saying, what else can we do to assist you to see that low-hanging fruit and be able to use it to the advantage of both or multiple carriers?
So take me as one of the startup airlines in Africa who is actually dying for collaboration. I want to cooperate with other airlines. What should I be doing? What should I be doing right to get others to want to talk to me and do business with me?
Okay, so the first thing you must do is, as a startup airline in Africa, join AASA.
And so what would AASA do for such an airline to ensure it derives the benefits of cooperation with others? Because it looks as if airlines don't just want to do it, or they always want to do it. So for instance, the state-owned airlines might not be interested, most of them, but how about the private airlines, especially in the Southern Africa region?
So I think for me, the beauty of being in Southern Africa is we've got quite a number of privately owned airlines that are very successful. Yeah, very, very successful. And we are proud of that, simply because we have been able to force our mentality to understand that the national carrier can coexist with privately owned airlines. So as a startup airline must be able to say to themselves, number one, first and foremost, what is our business model? Once you get to understand what your business model is, you bed it down and say, this is what is going to guide us in developing our business plan. Rafael, I cannot overemphasize this point. Your business model determines what business plan you're going to put in place. And your business plan can only be a strong business plan in as far as your business model drives your objectives. What do you want to achieve? That's, for me, as a startup airline, if you get these three things in place, you are almost guaranteed to have to go to a bank and the bank will listen to you.
Wow. Okay. So that's the trick. We need to start testing that and see how it works. But
Rafael, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have tested this for quite a while now.
Yes.
As you are aware, I've been to each and every country on our continent. Every one of them. 55 countries I've been there. Not once, not twice, more than 3 times. And every time I go to these countries, I look at the landscape and I say, sometimes I look at the feeds at the airport and I say to myself, so I wonder, what business model is this airline using? And when I have the opportunity to meet with these airline executives, in my own diplomatic way, I try and find out from them, so what is your business model? The answers are mind-boggling. They are mind-blowing.
Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, some of the business models are models that have not yet been thought about.
Right now, the business plans that they have, the strategies that they have, were built on a world that no longer exists. And yet they are still holding on to those strategies and business plans. That world no longer exists.
It's like still continuing to use a typewriter at the time the computer itself is being phased out.
Exactly. Imagine if you went into an airport or a supermarket and the phone rings and the ringtone that you hear is the Nokia ringtone. What goes on in your mind?
That's quite interesting. Now, let me switch gears to the single African air transport market, which you touched on briefly earlier on. You know, I think probably this is one of the game-changing policies of the African Union for African aviation going forward. I'm not too sure how well SATAM is accepted within the SADC region, and in particular in South Africa. What is the response to SATAM?
So proudly, I can tell you, Rafael, out of the 16 countries in the Southern Africa region, almost everybody has signed. We have actually four that have not signed. But we are engaging them and saying, look, we don't want to say that we are going to rule by majority, because the majority can be wrong, don't forget. But we are saying on the probability of us being one region, 12 have signed. We want to know why you have not signed. What is the reluctance? And we're not saying that we are diluting the reasons why you have not signed. Share with us the reasons why you have not signed, number one. And number two, what can we do to give you a sense of comfort so that you move towards understanding that you are missing out? So that's on the ones that have not signed. The ones that have signed, we are saying to them, so there are 8 pillars that you need to incorporate for you to become fully SATAM compliant. Yeah. What can we do to help you to get to become fully SATAM compliant? But that for me, Rafael, that is where the biggest challenge is. Mm. We don't want to remain in that mindset that keeps talking to what SATAM says. What can you do right now? Having signed SATAM, what can you do right now? We have our own airlines here in Southern Africa that are saying, now that we have signed SATAM, we want to get to start implementing fifth freedoms. Mm. And they're doing it. They are pushing, They are pushing me as the CEO of AASA to say, Aaron, we have already signed, this country has signed, that country has signed. There's no reason whatsoever why we should be going to BASA. We now need to use SATAM because we have signed. You can do the paperwork later. We have signed. Let us get access to this market in terms of fifth and sixth freedom traffic rights. That's what we want to do, Rafael. For me, the time for talking is over. We have done the talking. Those who, if you don't know what SATAM is by now, you'll never know. Wow. What we need you to do is to start implementing. We want our airlines to start pushing us to say, guys, we need to implement SATAM now, not tomorrow, now. We have to get it activated now.
Yes, I think that is the point, because I don't seem to be hearing airlines saying, I want to go to country A or destination B and have been refused permission, even though the country has signed SATAM. I'm not hearing much of that. I'm hearing more the airline associations, the states regulators talking about, let's sign, let everybody sign, let everybody implement the memorandum of implementation, and let's get SATAM going. Why are airlines not testing the waters?
Well, I can tell you, Rafael, I can tell you proudly so. As AASA, I can tell you, we have airlines in our association that are pushing. They are pushing us to say, we have signed SATAM. We want SATAM to be implemented. We want to go to this point. We have registered. We actually know which airlines want to go where. And the challenge is those countries that are refusing to give them access to those markets. And the refusal is not necessarily saying, no, you're not yet SATAM. They use very frivolous excuses like, for example, the slot that you want is already taken. And we know that the slot is not taken. They are just saying it's taken so that they can block our airline. And we are pushing with our airlines together. We are getting up. We're not sitting down. We're getting up on our feet, and we are going to engage those guys. Unfortunately, that's where I can only say unfortunately, because COVID has limited us in terms of being able to travel. But I can assure you, the moment these restrictions are lifted, we are going to go with our airlines together to face those countries and say, we want you to give our airlines access to this market by virtue of being SATAM signatories. End of story.
Wow, great. Now let me go to our listeners and then pick a few of the questions that have started trickling in, and then we continue. Sure. Finish. is from John. And John is asking, an airline can only control its own cost. If airport operators are increasing their fees, this has to be passed on to passengers, which affects demand negatively. The DG of IATA, Willie Walsh, called out AASA for this. How does AASA see this situation?
Okay, good question, John. So here's the thing. Yes, airlines can control their own costs. That's very true. But at the same time, Rafael, airlines also control where they operate. If in their business model, they want to operate to a particular destination or a particular series of destinations, and those destinations don't fall in line with their thinking, with their business model, airlines have the right to choose other destinations. You can't stick to the old knitting that gave you a broken jersey and hope to have a cardigan. No way. If these airports or service providers are not falling in line with what you think, go elsewhere. That's the only way the market forces can change the thinking. I support the idea of airlines being able to be supported by containing costs. I support that. And I read the statement from the DG of IATA. I totally understand that. But I think also what is important is to have a dialogue with AASA. How far was the dialogue with AASA? Did they actually engage with AASA? Or they just came out and made a statement about AASA wants to do this without engaging AASA? I think AASA can proudly say they are one of the very few, can I say, airport authorities on the continent that works through a regulating committee. The government, the Department of Transport in South Africa, puts together a regulating committee that sits and oversees the fees that are charged, the regulated fees that are charged by these airports. And AASA has to apply, they must apply to the regulating committee. And the regulating committee speaks with the airline industry through the associations to say, this is the proposal on the table. Right now, as we speak, we are in the middle of discussions with the regulating committee so that we can find each other. Yes, the cost might be high, but we need to be able to find each other. Did IATA find out why AASA was proposing to increase the cost the way they did? Maybe they did not. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying what we need to do is to be able to engage. You remember what I said earlier on, Rafael? Yes. We must learn to live together as brothers and sisters. And brothers and sisters talk to each other. We can't just talk to each other at the pulpit and start fighting. No, let's talk to each other and find each other. Even if we disagree, let us agree to disagree, but make a commitment to how we're going to go forward.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, another point here. Tom Cox says, is looking forward to your ideas on safety promotion and partnerships in Southern Africa and indeed Africa. What are your thoughts on that? Safety promotion.
Safety promotions?
Yes.
Okay, for sure, definitely. One thing about us in Southern Africa, Rafael, safety is non-negotiable. Period. End of story. We are all signatories to the Abuja Safety Commitment. Safety is non-negotiable. To the extent that even our airports insist on operators coming into and operating into our airports being AASA accredited. That's the extent to which we are so committed to making sure that we do not compromise on safety. Okay, so if there are operators that are struggling to get their safety standards up to the level that is required, we as AASA come in and we are available. Ask us, come and engage with us. We are going to be able to assist by giving you the direction in terms of where you can get that assistance you require to become AASA accredited. If not AASA accredited, but you have to have the safety concept, understanding that safety is non-negotiable. We have this in our meetings as AASA. We've just had our business meeting this morning, and we actually made sure that we encouraged our airlines to say, come to us and tell us what issues should be put in our flight operations discussion with our respective stakeholders. So we are not shying away. We call out each other. Those that are not coming to the table in as far as the commitments are concerned, we'll call them out and make sure that they fall in line with what our required and agreed standard levels are as far as safety is concerned.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is good news coming from Tom Cook following his question is request for clarity on your views on safety. It says, lovely people at AFRA, here is an early Xmas gift for AFRA members and clients. We are giving away 10 free tickets to the upcoming edition of the Online Safety in Africa Aviation Conference on the 7th of December, International Civil Aviation Day, starting at 15:30 Central African Time. And he has provided a link through which anyone who is interested in participating in this event should go to and register to take advantage of this. Thank you so much, Tom, for for your generosity and your continued support of African aviation.
Thank you, Tom.
Another question from Brian Madieng. Why should African airlines come together and work as one bloc? Why are we closing borders for one another?
I didn't get the second part of the question. Why are we what?
Why are we closing borders to each other?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a very, can I say, that's a very pertinent question. Why are we closing borders to each other?
Yeah.
This is a very sore point to me, very sore point. So last week on Friday, the UK put us on a red list because our scientists in South Africa and Botswana had identified the Omicron. They called it B11529, and they put us on a banned list. Raphael, do you know what? This morning, we got to hear that the Netherlands had actually identified this same variant a week ago. They kept quiet. They kept it to themselves. I wonder, has the UK put a ban on the Netherlands because they got this? They identified this variant. I am very upset because this is a very, very, very important issue for us as Africans to understand. If the knee-jerk reaction by the UK cannot be tolerated, it cannot be accepted. Dictating to us one standard and applying another standard, that's double standards. We will not accept that. Yes. The reason why I'm also upset, Raphael, is because other African countries followed suit without understanding the actual issue that was at hand here. Other African countries, simply because the UK has closed borders, they also followed blindly and said we're going to close borders with Southern Africa. For crying out loud, on the basis of what? Right now, they are now smarting in their embarrassment. They can't even face us and tell us that they are sorry because they followed the wrong lead. My call to our business meeting this morning, Raphael, was to say we need to be very, very vigilant about this ourselves as Africans. Number one, we need to standardize how we do the testing, and we need to harmonize the protocols so that we are all on the same wavelength and will avoid or circumvent such embarrassing situations where other African countries are closing borders to other African countries. That to me is diabolical. We cannot tolerate that.
Aaron, the issue of this new COVID variant is a very sensitive one and a very emotional one at that, particularly for Africa. My worry and my concern up till now is why are we not hearing many African heads of states and governments shouting and screaming about this discriminatory practice that we are seeing? Why are they probably speaking in low tones or not speaking at all when this is impacting us? I was just reading this morning a press release by Canada extending a ban of countries, and all of those countries that they're banning are all African countries. Now, the virus has been found in some European countries.
Mm-hmm.
Why are those countries not in that list, the list of countries that they are banned?
So here's the thing, Raphael.
We're quiet about it.
Yeah, so you're absolutely correct.
It's unfortunate, but we think that as an industry, because this all has implications for industry. This is why at the beginning, when the vaccine was first discovered, there was a lot of agitation made for us to be more equitable in the distribution of the vaccine across the world. No, we decided to starve others because they could not afford. Some countries bought more than they needed and eventually got their fair share and left Africa behind, only to turn around now and create the impression as if now Africa is now the one with the virus. Everybody else is okay. Don't come to our countries. It is a very painful reality and we need to confront it. My appeal to African governments is let's speak up. We have the opportunity to also reciprocate. If a country says don't come to our country, tell them don't also fly into my country. It's as simple as that, so that we can move on from there.
I totally agree with you, Raphael. And for me, the parting shot, as far as that is concerned, like you say, is a very sensitive issue. Diplomacy, in my view, sometimes is not for business. In business, diplomacy does not work. The second thing, Raphael, is to say, as Africans, wherever we are, whatever we do, we must understand one thing. The world owes us nothing. We must not expect anything from the world. The only thing that we expect from the rest of the world is they want to obliterate us. That's the only thing. Right. With that mindset, we will be able to survive. We should not expect anything from anybody. We should not expect anything from anybody. Vaccine, diplomacy, whatever it is, don't expect anybody to give you vaccines. Buy your own vaccines. There is a lot of money that we have wasted as Africans to shame ourselves by not buying vaccines, and yet we're buying other things that are not necessary. We should actually be self-sufficient, Raphael. For me, that is what is important. Forget about what the rest of the world owes us. They don't owe us anything.
Anyway, I think let's wrap up as our time is running out. I just want to know from you, what would you want to see change moving into 2022 and beyond? What would you want to see change in African aviation to bring the new dispensation into being, to get African aviation on its right trajectory in 2022 and beyond?
Raphael, this is a very unfair question.
I'm asking you because you are a leader of.
But at this time, you're only giving me 3 minutes. You should have asked this question to start with. Then we would have spoken about it the whole 1 hour. Because there is so much to be done. But anyway, okay. I think let me do justice to this. So I think there are 3 things that I would like to see change in Raphael. The one thing is we are going to stop doing one thing. We are going to stop talking. Let's stop talking. We need to see more action and less talk. Let's get on with the simple but effective initiatives that need to be put in place. Airlines want nothing. They need tangible results. First and foremost, cost reduction initiatives. We need to reduce the cost for the airline. We spoke about it earlier on, and we don't want bailouts, Raphael. We just want airlines to have a break, a tax break, fees and charges waivers. Those are the kind of things that we are looking for. But we need to be able to say to airlines, here's your tax break for the next six months. You are not going to pay this fuel levy or that levy. That's what we want to do. And as AASA, we are going to make sure that we push forward for those cost initiatives for our airlines. We're going to do that. Our airlines must measure us because we're going to highlight it and tell them about it, number one. So we're going to do less talking, number one. There are too many committees. And you know what they say about committees, Raphael? A committee is everybody's business, but no one's responsibility. Do away with committees. We don't want no more committees. We've got more than enough. Too much talking and nothing is happening. We need to start doing things. And number 3, we need to align with the business world. Aviation is business. End of story. All the things that apply to business, whether you are selling pizza or whether you are selling chicken or whether you are selling shoes or you are selling a beer, the same principles that apply to those businesses apply to airline industry. You have to reduce your costs, increase your cash inflows so that you can have positive cash flow. These are the 3 things that I want to see happening, Raphael. I like to see us changing our mindsets so that, number 1, we are more action-oriented in terms of cost reduction. We do less talking and we align ourselves to the business world. If we do this, I can assure you, we will have a successful African aviation industry.
Wow, now I cannot let you go without asking you this question, which is actually of keen interest to me also personally. How do you foresee a working relationship between AASA and AFRA going forward with you?
Okay, so here's the thing, Rafael. A closer working relationship between AFRA and AASA is ideal. We must strive for that, a closer working relationship. But you know what? A closer working relationship is a feel-good factor. And we are not here to feel good about each other. We want a strategic alignment of our deliverables. For me, that is what is important. I am going to go to my elder brother, Afra, and my brother, Abdurrahman Berte, and ask him, Abdurrahman, here are my key deliverables given to me by my association as strategic deliverables. How can we align these strategic deliverables with yours and come up with 2 or 3 that we are going to deliver together? End of story. That's all. If we do that, AASA and AFRA are going to become more relevant to our members. That's it.
Very practical. That's a very good one. Thank you so much, Aaron. Now, I want to give you the opportunity to give us at least 3 key pattern shots.
Okay.
If you want it, take home message, okay. 3 of them, just basically. Then we wind up.
So the first one, the first pattern shot is don't feel sorry for yourself. Just because your business in the aviation industry has gone through challenges, don't feel sorry for yourself. What you must do is you must take this opportunity and say, embrace the concept that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. What are you going to get out? What lessons are you learning out of this crisis? So do introspection and come up with key lessons that you have learned from this crisis. That's the first thing. The second thing is integrate your thinking into collaboration. And I call it the 3 C's, Raphael. No matter where you are, no matter what you do in terms of operating in the aviation industry, cooperation, collaboration, and commitment. We must start cooperating as countries, as airlines, as partners. Let's start cooperating. Let us collaborate on initiatives. We are going to achieve much more when we collaborate. And the third and final, commitment. Let us commit to what we are going to do. Once we get into commitment mode, we are going to hold each other accountable for whatever outcomes are expected. They must be measurable, and we must be able to measure them on an ongoing basis. What you measure gets done. That's, for me, those are the most important things that I want to take out in this conversation and going forward as African aviation.
Thank you very much. What a note to end. Aaron Munetsi, CEO, AASA. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, I see there's a lot of chats going on the side. Unfortunately, I cannot read them all out because of time, but thank you very much for your active participation. And to my guest, Aaron Munetsi, CEO, AASA, thank you very much for your time and for sharing these laudable ideas with us on developing African aviation going into the future. We look forward to engaging you in the not too distant future, particularly going into 2022, as we explore further some of these issues that you shared with us today. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Raphael, and thank you to the audience, and thank you to Afra, and all the best to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye now.